The story of the Blackburn family took a tragic turn in the middle of Indianapolis, a city that could be described as pulsating with a mixture of modernism and heritage. Indianapolis was the location where the tragic turn occurred. The unfortunate turn of events took place in Indianapolis, which was the geographic site. The individual who goes by the name Amanda Blackburn is a woman who possesses a great deal of reverence for both her family and the religious ideals that she upholds. The city of Muskegon, which is found in the state of Michigan, is where she spent her childhood. It was in that capacity that she served, since she was the primary driving force behind the organization's direction and motivation. Amanda's values were derived from her unwavering dedication to her beliefs, which she achieved through her unwavering commitment to her beliefs. Amanda's upbringing in a home where Christianity was the most important thing was the source of her values, which she earned through her unwavering dedication to her beliefs. The unwavering dedication that Amanda has shown to her principles has served as the basis for the values that she strives to uphold. It is clear that she had strong religious convictions, as demonstrated by the fact that she made a promise to herself at a young age to lead a life of chastity until she had earned the right to get married. There was a promise that she made to herself. During the course of her travels across this spiritual environment, Amanda came across Davy Blackburn, a kindred soul whose own faith was comparable to Amanda's own. Amanda was attracted to Davy Blackburn because he was a person who shared a similar faith. Amanda was successful in establishing touch with Davy Blackburn for the purpose of identifying the individual in question. They had a basis upon which they built their connection, which eventually evolved into a true love, and that foundation was the fact that they had values and ideals that were comparable to one another. This foundation was the base upon which they created their connection. In addition to their commitment to one another, the fact that they shared a commitment to their faith acted as the glue that held them together, and they embarked on a journey of devotion and dedication together. During a day that would forever alter the path that their lives would take from that point forward, a dreadful act of violence had the effect of destroying the tranquility and peace that had been a part of the Blackburn family's life up to that point. This day would irrevocably change the course that their lives would take from that point forward. At the time, Amanda was going about her day in their home in Indianapolis when a horrific event that was completely irrational took place. The event in issue took place during the time period in question. A horrendous assault was committed on Amanda, which led to her suffering severe injuries and putting her life in jeopardy. Amanda was the victim of this assault. In point of fact, the particulars are quite terrifying. Amanda was the one who was assaulted. There was a brutal assault committed on the victim, who was named Amanda. Because Amanda was unable to recover from the injuries she experienced earlier, she passed away, leaving behind a community that is in a state of astonishment and mourning. This is because Amanda was unable to recover from the injuries she sustained earlier. Amanda and the unborn child that she was carrying at the time of her death were both unsuccessful in their attempts to save them. The frantic efforts that were made to save Amanda were fruitless. Amanda did not survive despite the attempts that were made to save her life. In the wake of Amanda's passing, an investigation into the circumstances surrounding her passing was launched. After her death, this action was taken in response to her passing. In the beginning, Davy Blackburn, her spouse who was going through a horrible time, was given a reputation that was not positive. This reputation was provided to him. Regardless of this, the detectives continued their investigation, and as they did so, they came across evidence that developed in a way that led them in a different direction. Through the utilization of the information that was obtained from the stolen things, as well as the surveillance footage, law enforcement was able to identify 3 individuals who were suspected of being involved in the criminal activity. It was possible to determine the identities of these individuals. The town, which had been stunned mute by the calamity, received some consolation in the form of arrests that were made in the aftermath of it. When it came to gaining justice, the path that was chosen was challenging since it was defined by legal proceedings that were packed with challenges. This made the path tough to follow. After being put through a trial that was riddled with a variety of potential bottlenecks and delays, Larry Taylor, who is accused of being one of the perpetrators, was held accountable for his actions. He is the subject of the charges that have been made against him. In spite of this, the prosecution was successful in obtaining a conviction, and as a result, Taylor was finally held accountable for the crimes that he committed to the conclusion of the proceedings. The completion of this goal was made possible by two elements: unyielding determination and ongoing labor. Both of these characteristics led to the success of the endeavor. Jalen Watson and Diana Gordon, who were both participating in the illegal behavior, were both held liable for their respective roles in the disaster. Both of them were held accountable for their respective roles. Collectively, they were to blame for the catastrophe that occurred. Every single one of those people, in addition to him, was held accountable for the contributions that they made on their own. Despite the fact that the court processes had come to a close, there were still issues that had not been settled, which left a shadow of doubt and speculation over the entire event throughout its entirety. There were rumors that appeared in the midst of the sadness and loss that was going place between the two parties, and the public reaction that Davy Blackburn provided to the tragedy was the focus of those rumors. There were claims of disagreement that surfaced. He moved from being a spouse who was heartbroken to becoming a prominent figure in the media, and as a result, he became the subject of an investigation. This investigation raised questions about the financial gains he had achieved and the circumstances surrounding Amanda's passing. To be more specific, the investigation concentrated on the circumstances that led to Amanda's sadness. As a stark reminder of the precious fragility of life and the extent to which human depravity may lead to bad repercussions, the unfortunate events that have unfolded in respect to the Blackburn family serve as a startling lesson. Nevertheless, there is still a ray of hope in the middle of the pain. This is a demonstration of the enduring legacy of faith and forgiveness that Amanda has left behind for those who come after her. A senseless murder took her life, but her spirit continues to live on, inspiring people to seek serenity in the midst of tragedy and to embrace the power of love and forgiveness. Her life was cut short by a senseless murder. This tragic event took her life. Her life was cut short and ended prematurely as a result of a terrible murder. As a remarkable indication of the transforming force that has the potential to occur when two people who are religious are in love with one another, the connection that existed between Davy Blackburn and Amanda Blackburn provided as an example of this capacity. They had a profound connection from the very beginning of their relationship, which was established on the beliefs and concepts that they shared in common when they were first introduced to one another. This connection was the foundation around which their relationship was built. It was this connection that served as the basis for the development of their romantic relationship. They made the discovery that the sacred space of platonic devotion was the location where their love grew, and it was in this space that their commitment to their faith served as the foundation for when they made the decision to get married. Davy and Amanda exchanged their vows between one another in the year 2008, stating that they would love and serve one another for the rest of their lives. This commitment was made to each other by Davy and Amanda. It was between the two of them that they made this commitment. As a result of their marriage, which not only brought their hearts closer together, but also encouraged them to pursue a mission together, they were inspired to go on a mission together to promote the message of faith and hope to other people. This mission was to communicate the message of faith and hope to other people. By moving to Indianapolis with the idea of creating a church that would focus on the children, they have proven the unwavering dedication that they have exhibited toward the objective that they have set out to accomplish. This is evidenced by the fact that they have moved there. During the time that they spent together, the two of them set out on a journey of spiritual leadership responsibilities. In 2014, When they welcomed their son Weston into the world, they experienced a degree of euphoria and a sense of success in their lives that they had never before experienced during their entire lives. In all of their previous experiences, they had never encountered anything like this. Together, they were able to strengthen their connection via the shared experience of nurturing a new life and instilling ideas of compassion and generosity in their child. This occurred as they embraced the joys of motherhood and enlarged their partnership. Because of this, they were able to get more intimate with one another. The fact that they were able to improve their relationship with one another was a direct result of this. A tragic event occurred at the residence of the Blackburn family on November 10, 2015, which ultimately led to the termination of their existence, which had been so great up until that point. On the other hand, the Blackburn family endured a wonderful existence up until that moment. Amanda was a dazzling illustration of love and faith in the community in which she lived. She was unfortunate enough to be the target of a brutal assault, which put her life in danger and even raised the prospect that it could be taken away from her. At the time of the assault, she was in a precarious situation in which her life could be taken away. A community that is reeling from shock and loss has been left behind as a result of the passing of Amanda, which was brought on by the injuries that she sustained. Because Amanda has passed away, this community is now left in a state of disarray. Despite the frantic efforts that were made to save Amanda and the priceless life that she carried within her when she passed away, Amanda did not survive any of the attempts that were made to save her as she passed away. Everyone who had the good pleasure to know Amanda Blackburn was left with an unforgettable impression as a result of her unwavering faith, her generosity, and her compassion. The woman who left an indelible mark was one who was a woman. She is someone I will never be able to forget. After hearing the news of her passing, every single individual who had the privilege of knowing her was left with an overwhelming feeling of sorrow. The Blackburn family was confronted with a loss that was beyond comprehension, and the community pulled together to provide them with support and compassion during this trying time. This action was taken in the midst of the community's sadness, which was occurring at the same time that the community was mourning her departure. In spite of the terrible event that occurred to her, Amanda was able to leave behind a legacy that endured, which was one that was characterized by love and faith. These relics will continue to exist. Several other people were inspired to embrace the power of love and forgiveness in the face of challenging circumstances as a result of this legacy, which acted as a ray of light in the midst of the darkness caused by the circumstances. Leaving behind this legacy was a ray of light. At the very moment that the dreadful occurrences that befell the Blackburn family took place, the wheels of justice started turning in order to confront the consequences that were brought about by those disasters. In the beginning, Davy Blackburn, who was Amanda's husband and was going through a great deal of emotional upheaval, was regarded with a great degree of mistrust. This was because he was going through a lot of emotional conflict. On the other hand, a thorough inquiry promptly cleared him of any conceivable connection in the heinous conduct that was carried out at the time it was committed. At the time when the investigation was being carried out, this was the situation. Because Davy was cleared of any claims that had been made against him, law enforcement officers moved their focus to discovering who was responsible for the terrible assault that Amanda had been subjected to. Amanda had been the victim of the assault. In the aftermath of the gathering of evidence from the spot where the crime had taken place, the officials of the law enforcement agency laboriously pieced together as much of the evidence as they could. Not only did this evidence consist of items that had been taken, but it also comprised film that had been gathered by surveillance cameras that were installed within the premises. Because of the efforts that they have put forth, they have been successful in identifying 3 persons who are suspected of being involved in the illegal activity. These individuals are among those who have been identified. As a result of the evidence that established a connection between Larry Taylor and the location of the crime, which included items that had been stolen as well as surveillance film that confirmed his presence, Larry Taylor emerged as the primary suspect in the case. This occurred as a result of the fact that the evidence demonstrated a connection between Larry Taylor and the arrest of the individuals who were responsible for the offense was the third stage, which signified a substantial shift in the direction of punishing those responsible for the crime. This stage had a considerable impact on the path of punishment. Larry Taylor was held accountable for the crimes that were connected to Amanda's death as a result of the charges that were made against him. This was due to the fact that it was believed that Larry Taylor was the mastermind behind the murder of Amanda. The fact that Taylor's trial was plagued by a number of issues, one of which was a mistrial, made the process of obtaining justice more challenging. There was, on the other hand, an increase in the difficulty of the path that led to justice. The prosecution did not waver in its commitment to bring those responsible for the crime to justice and hold them accountable for their acts, despite the hurdles that were presented to them. The two individuals who were involved in the unlawful activity, Diana Gordon and Jalen Watson, came to the awareness that they would cooperate with the police in exchange for shorter terms. This realization occurred when they agreed to cooperate with the police. The conclusion that they reached was reached during the course of their investigation. As a result of their collaboration, the case against Taylor was strengthened as a result of their participation, which supplied vital insights and evidence that corroborates the charges. This was a consequence of their collaboration. However, in the end, it was their cooperation that proved to be the most important factor in terms of gaining convictions against the individuals who were responsible for the crime. The jury finally decided that Larry Taylor was responsible for the murder of Amanda, and as a consequence of his participation in the trial, he was given a sentence of 86 years in jail for his part in the crime. The fact that he decided to take part in the prosecution led to the imposition of this sentence. The authorities claimed that Diana Gordon and Jalen Watson were given reduced sentences during this time period as a result of their cooperation with the authorities. This information comes from, according to the authorities, this occurred place throughout the period of time when the problem was still in the process of developing. Even though the legal proceedings were marked by obstacles and delays, justice was ultimately effective in bringing those responsible for Amanda's untimely death accountable for their actions. Amanda's death was tragically untimely. The events that led to Amanda's passing were not necessary in any way. The passing of Amanda was a death that was not had to take place. At the conclusion of the legal proceedings that had been surrounding the suffering of the Blackburn family, the community found solace in the knowledge that those who were responsible for Amanda's death would be held accountable for their actions. This knowledge brought the town a sense of comfort. This information provided the community with a sense of relief. Despite the fact that there was no way to bring back the cherished wife, mother, and member of the community that they had lost, the convictions offered those who had been affected by the tragedy with a sense of closure. This was the case despite the fact that there was no way to bring back the person who had been taken from them. In spite of everything that had been said and done, justice was ultimately vindicated, which offered the Blackburn family a glimmer of hope in the midst of the gloom that had engulfed them from the very beginning. In the aftermath of the tragic occurrence that took place with the Blackburn family, there was a strong sense of resilience among the members of the family, but there was also conflict among them. The incidents of this took place not long after the calamity had taken place. Davy Blackburn, the husband of Amanda Blackburn, who was profoundly impacted by the loss of his wife, Davy Blackburn, captured the attention of the public with his loud reactions of forgiveness toward the individuals who were responsible for the murder of his wife. Davy Blackburn was a victim of the murder of his wife. The public acts of grace and forgiveness that Davy performed in the face of an unfathomable calamity served as a proof of his character. These gestures served as a tribute to the perseverance of his faith and the depth of his character. It was quite evident that Davy's behaviors disclosed a tremendous deal of information regarding the breadth of his temperament. Nevertheless, the transformation of Davy from a bereaved spouse to a prominent character in the media sparked skepticism and disagreement in the middle of the outpouring of support for the family. From being a spouse who had recently lost their spouse, Davy moved on to become a significant figure in the media environment. Following the fact that he was thrown into the spotlight, there was an almost instantaneous response in the form of inquiry concerning his objectives and the reasons that underlay his behavior. At the same time that there were individuals who questioned the sincerity of his atonement, there were also individuals who investigated his recently obtained notoriety in the media. For each and every one of these observations, a variety of different people contributed their thoughts. Through the course of the investigation, Davy's financial gains that occurred in the wake of Amanda's passing were also scrutinized. These profits came about as a result of Amanda's passing. During the course of the investigation, these profits were made eventually. There was a great deal of public suspicion over the circumstances surrounding the insurance payout that he received, which resulted in an increase in the number of inquiries that were made about the actual nature of the events that took place on that terrible day in November during the month of November by the general public. In spite of the widespread condemnation that has been directed toward it on numerous occasions, the tragedy that occurred with Amanda Blackburn continues to serve as a heartbreaking reminder of the tragic repercussions that can come as a result of thoughtless violence being perpetrated. Her legacy, which is one of faith and forgiveness, is one that continues to endure, and it is this heritage that shines a light in the middle of the darkness. She left behind a legacy that continues to persist. In spite of the fact that she was taken from this world at a much younger age than she ought to have been, her spirit continues to live on in the hearts of everyone who knew and loved her during her whole existence, regardless of the circumstances surrounding her passing. Despite the fact that she was removed from this world, this state of affairs continues to exist. A rallying cry for compassion and justice, Amanda's story acts as a rallying cry at the end of the day. At the same time, it serves as a rallying cry for the cause of justice. The fact that she is remembered will serve as a permanent reminder of the precarious nature of life, as well as the significance of preserving one's faith and keeping an attitude of forgiveness in the face of sadness. This will be the case for as long as she is remembered. It is possible for the community to find solace in the living legacy of love and forgiveness that she leaves behind, despite the fact that they are still having a rough time coming to terms with the things that have happened as a result of her dying. Thank you for watching. I recommend our other crime videos.